Apple has scrapped its plan to build an electric vehicle. So what does this mean now for the stock? Let's talk about it. All right, guys, we aren't surprised about this, so at least I'm not. But as we heard, Apple has officially scrapped its plan to build an electric vehicle. I mean, after 10 years of effort, there wasn't even a timeline of when a car might be developed. So they're shifting their focus here. Analysts are not fazed by this news. Chris, Thomas, what is your take on this?
Yeah, I'm just like, what? I mean, the Apple EV hasn't really been in the news for years. When they got started, it was like, what are you doing? You can't build a car. That's kind of ridiculous. I mean, ultimately, what I expected from Apple was an operating system, and even that's not going to come now.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, they scrapped it right after the EV bubble burst so that they can go chase another fad. So to me, the EV thing for Apple was a fad. They wasted 10 years and billions of dollars chasing it, and now they're behind on AI.
Yeah, to me, the news doesn't come as that big of a surprise to me. Like Thomas, I never quite got my mind around Apple car. It just never really worked for me. I agree with Thomas. It is something that they've been putting time and resources into that they could have been putting into other things. I'm not necessarily worried about that, though. I mean, this is still a company that has a lot of cash. So it's not like they couldn't afford to spend something on a moonshot.
Okay,
Right. So I'm not worried about it per se, but it's just like, whatever,
Yeah, I agree with you. That's a good way of looking at it.
Okay, so you said the EV bubble has burst, but is Apple still expected to play some sort of role into the EV market now that it shifted its focus away from manufacturing vehicles, or is it kind of out of that?
Right. Like I said before, it's the operating system. If they can come up with an operating system that's better than Tesla, then they'll probably do well with it. But right now, it's like all the EV makers have their own operating systems, and Apple doesn't have a car to put one into. So I think it's really like it's just a no-go.
All right, well,
Yeah,
let's talk.
I'm sorry,
ahead.
Lacey. I was just going to finish up something that Thomas was saying. I think that this, with everything that's going on in the EV space right now, I think investors ought to be thinking about Apple's move away from the Apple car as something that says less about Apple and says more about what Apple thinks about the EV industry.
Well, exactly right. Another nail in the coffin. EVs aren't going away, but the days of growth are gone. I doubt there'll be a significant change in the market until they can either get the prices to come down by like 20% or the batteries improve by like 100%. And with neither one of those is going to happen anytime soon.
Right.
Well, let's talk about Apple's share prices, though. So they hit a peak in mid-2023, and that may turn into a long-term top. Thomas, in your article, you had mentioned that the company is struggling with traction, and its 2024 results are kind of looking weak. Tell us more about your reasoning behind this.
All right. The analysts are looking for a low single-digit decline in revenue this year. And I think that they're underestimating the weakness because of the recent iPhone sales data from China. Now, China is not all of iPhone sales, but it is a significant market for them. And iPhone sales in China fell 24%. So we're looking at probably a mid-single to high single-digit decline in revenue based on that. Foxconn, one of their suppliers, they actually assemble most of the iPhones. What's their number? They fell by like double digits. Yeah. 17% in the first 2 months of the year also points to some significant weakness for Apple. So I'm looking for weakness in Apple this year. Add in the fact they just got slapped with a big fine by the EU. Shares are moving lower. I see a significant opportunity for a break of support and even lower share prices.
Okay, so
I can't disagree with Thomas's outlook for the stock in the short term. I think a couple of things I would throw out there would be, number one is, if you're looking at Apple just through the lens of the last 6 to 8 months, or even in the course of the last year, I think Apple reminds me a little bit about some of the criticisms and arguments I hear against Bitcoin, in the sense that, yes, Apple may be down quite a bit from where it was at $200 a share, but if you look at it over time, there's a lot of Apple investors who are just fine with where the stock's at, and they've made a lot of money in the stock. And as far as the company itself goes, there's a lot of focus on Apple in China right now. And I think where I would tend to look is Apple got rich in China, but where are they going to go now? And it's because of the cash that they have and because of the wealth that the company built up in there, it's allowing them to pivot into places like India, Vietnam, Malaysia. That's, I think, the story for Apple going forward.
Okay, maybe you kind of mentioned this a little bit there, Chris, but despite recent challenges that some analysts remain optimistic, they remain optimistic about Apple stock. So what are the reasons for this? What are the potential catalysts that could drive Apple stock's price higher?
The key word right now is artificial intelligence, AI. There is a lot of anticipation about Apple's developer event coming up in this summer, that Apple's going to make a big splash that will clearly show that Apple is in the AI game. I have no insight on that. I have no advanced information on that. That's just what the scuttle is, that Apple is going to launch something big to show that they are a major player in the AI arena.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That pretty much aligns with what Wedbush's Dan Ives is saying. You know, he's maintains his price target, maintains his rating, saying Apple's had these tough times before, several times over the last couple of decades, and it always comes out ahead. And so in the near term, there's certainly some pressure. We're definitely trying to look past the next month or two towards the next developer conference and what the AI offerings might be, because that's probably what will reinvigorate the market for Apple products and the stock.
Is there anything else that investors should be considering with this stock?
Well, you know, I think it really depends. You know, if you're bearish on Apple, and I can understand that, there's ample reasons to be bearish. If you're bullish on Apple, as I tend to be, I would just throw out there the fact that investors should be aware of the fact that the company is they're a cash generating machine. They earn, and this isn't really a joke, this is just what the numbers say, they earn about $3,000 every second. So this is unless you believe that there's something fundamentally different about the company right now, you kind of have to believe that this is a company that has plans. They know what they're doing. It may be taking longer for them to execute it, but I still believe fundamentally that the stock is a buy going forward for long-term investors.
Mm-hmm. Well, while Apple is navigating this transition, we'll be keeping an eye on these developments as they unfold right here on this channel and at marketbeat.com. So be sure to subscribe for more insights. Thanks, guys.